Well, hello there. Reaching you from the Nigeria's capital, this is 6th edition on News Central. I am Chisom Okafor, and here are the top stories at this hour. The president has sworn in. The president has sworn in the acting Inspector General of Police. 5 worshippers are abducted as a raid was carried out at the Celestial Church in Owo, Ondo State. A fatal bombardment has sparked panic around Nesaya Hospital. We have details on these and more in a moment. We begin with the national opposition parties who have now called on members to unite against the ruling All Progressives Congress, saying that Nigeria's democracy is facing a steep decline and in need of an emergency. At a press briefing in Abuja, they say there is a need to dislodge the ruling APC in a bid to address current alleged regression, which is causing untold hardship on citizens and taking a toll on the nation. The meeting had chieftains of the African Democratic Congress, the New Nigeria's People's Party, and other opposition political parties, including notable politicians like former Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi, former President of the Senate David Mark, former Minister of Transportation Rotimi Amechi, among others.
What you must bear in mind is that the collapse of democracy in Nigeria is going to lead to the collapse of democracy in Africa, because we are the largest democracy in Africa. I will call other opposition parties that are not here today to make sure that they are part of this movement of the unity of the opposition parties to ensure we restore our democracy.
When I was in government, Buhari wanted electoral reform. So a few ministers went to him, convinced him not to sign, that if he signed, Russia will hack the system and impose the wrong president on us. And he refused to sign. The same people are now shouting electoral reform. So people who want to shout for electoral reform.
There's need, very urgent need, for all the opposition parties. Those who are not here today, we're pleading that we all come together to save our dear country. The judiciary is no longer hope of the weak or the poor. We all know insecurity, killings, and abductions is worse than even countries at war.
We'll be discussing details about the oppositions and their stance when our correspondent joins us later. But for now, a prosecution witness in the trial of 9 suspects accused of being complicit in the 2025 massacre in the Alwata community, Guma local government area of Benue State, has testified that Fulani chiefs in Nasarawa State participated in meetings and commissioned attackers to perpetrate the attack that left over 200 persons dead and properties worth millions of naira destroyed. The witness, Moses Paul, who is a leader of the intelligence response team of the Nigerian police force, testified before Justice Joyce Abdul Malik while being led in evidence by the Director of Public Prosecution, Rotimi Oyedepo. Our judiciary correspondent Joshua Emerai has details in this report.
Proceedings in the trial of 9 suspects accused of the June 13, 2025 Yawata massacre began with Lego fireworks as the Federal High Court in Abuja first entertained the applications from the defense before taking the testimony of the prosecution witness. Counsel to the first defendant sought to move motions challenging the jurisdiction of the court and also applied for bail. However, the court declined to allow the applications to be moved at that stage and directed that the trial should proceed.
As you can see, the first defendant has suffered stroke, so on compassionate grounds we're asking the court to allow him be treated in a hospital instead of just lying in prison.
Following the ruling, the first prosecution witness, Moses Paul, a team leader with the intelligence response team of the Nigerian police force, took the stand, led in evidence by the Director of Public Prosecutions, Rotimi Oyedepo. The witness testified that more than 200 armed men wielding AK-47 rifles attacked the Awata community in Guma local government area of Benue State, killing over 200 persons and destroying properties worth millions of naira. The witness testified that he received a distress call while in Akwa State and was immediately detailed to investigate the incident. He said investigations led to the arrest of the defendants in Kadarku, Alkirigu, and parts of Nasarawa State. According to him, the first defendant arrested, Haruna Abdullahi, was apprehended in Alkirigu, Nasarawa State. The witness further told the court that Abdullahi allegedly confessed to attending meetings of Fulani chiefs which began at residence of one Ardu Mohammed. He said the meetings were held to address grievances over alleged killings of cattle and kinsmen in Benue and Nasarawa State, and that resources were mobilized to engage armed men. He added that the attackers were said to have initially targeted Daudin community but diverted to Yelwata after meeting resistance. After hearing the witness testimony, Justice Joyce Abdulmalik adjourned the matter to the 27th of February for continuation of the examination of the first prosecution witness. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Now joining us to discuss this development is Frank Uto, a lawyer, humanitarian, media relations officer for equipping persecuted in a native of course, Yelwata. And also joining us virtually is Temitope Olodo, the CEO and Managing Director, Trans Intelligence and Security Solutions. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So it's been almost a year. I'm starting with you, Frank. It's been almost a year since this very unfortunate incident, and you being a native of this community. What does it mean to finally see individuals being named in court for this very heart-wrenching massacre of over 200 people in your community?
Okay, so it is very pleasing to know that the prosecution of this suspect has started. But it could have been more pleasing if the police and other security agencies were able to stop the massacre of June 13 and 14 last year in my village. We got the intelligence report, we sent it to various security agencies and to the government, but they failed to attack. So these 278 people who were killed on that day will have been alive today by God's grace if the security agencies have really hearkened to our cries, but they didn't. But to God be the glory, we are seeking justice, and justice is on its way. Today, I saw the arraignment of the 8 people. I know 4 of those 8 people from what was paraded on your TV. I know them physically one-on-one, and they were part of the group that attacked Yelwata. And like the police said in your report, over 200 people, 200 of these daredevils attacked my community wielding AK-47 and general purpose machine guns. I have the contact of about 20 of those people who are still working free. I have the names of about 80 of these people who are working free today. Many of them are still in Kadorko. Many of them are still in Giza. Many of them are still in Ajaragu and Lafia and Kwara district of Kiana local government. What has happened to the Ardo of Kadorko? He was involved. What has happened to Alhaji Yusuf Garba? Yusuf Garba drives Sharon. He was the person who transported fuel to Yelwata that evening of Friday, 13th of June, 2025. The fuel that they use in burning many of these houses, some of these houses that consume my relatives, my friends, my neighbors, these people are still working free. What happened to Usman Abdullah Gamchi? He's still in Kadorko. What happened to Ardo Lawal? The Ardo who suffered stroke, the first defendant who suffered stroke, was the mastermind of this. That's the Ardo of Lafia, the Ardo of Nasarawa State. He lives in Lafia. He was the mastermind. He wasn't supposed to be taken to hospital to suffer stroke. He should have been taken to the IDP camp in Makodi at the international market in Makodi, where the IDPs of Yelwata are camped. Let him face them and tell them why did he do that?
So Frank, you already mentioned you mentioned other names that you believe should also be arraigned. Why these names? Have you provided these names to the relevant security? Do they know about these people? Because you're being very specific about it and very sure of what you're saying.
After this interview, I'm sending, because I thought they have these people in their custody. They are arraigning just 8. They are arraigning just 8.
9 actually.
The police themselves say over 200 of these guys came to my community and killed my people and carried out that genocidal attack in my community. Now you are arraigning just 8. What happened to the other 200? I have the names and contact details of about 20 of these people. Then I have the names of about 80 others without their contact details. And some of these persons, when you go to Kadoko today, you find them on the street. They are still going about carrying out their businesses. Some are into transport business. Some are into motorcycle riding in the community. And some have taken over tea farmlands. The farmlands of tea people in Kadorko, in Giza, in Kwara district, all the way to Tunga in Awe local government. They've taken over the possession of tea farmlands and are carried. They've become farms. They say they were headers, but many of them don't even own a single cow. They've taken over, so they are carrying out an expansionist agenda that is meant to destroy and totally obliterate the tea people in their ancestral land. So we want to see the root of this matter. We want to see the root. I speak to you authoritatively. If there are two people in Nigeria who have full fact of what has been happening, it is I and the rest. On this matter, the matter that affects my community, the matter that affects the southern part of Nasarawa State, where you have a tea majority in Away, in Doma, in Kiana, in Opi local government, and my own part of Benue State, because long before I came to the United States, I've been involved in it. I came to the United States just 2024 as a student. And after I graduated, I am working for Equipping the Persecuted and Truth Nigeria. I don't think the security agencies in Nigeria even have the kind of intelligence that we have in Truth Nigeria.
Well, I'm happy that you already mentioned that you're going to provide these names, to the relevant authorities. You said after this interview. Now, I want to ask Temitope. There was something he mentioned at the beginning. He said, regardless of us seeing what is happening in court right now, these people being on trial, that it could have been prevented. So let's talk about intelligence network. What could have been done? How can security agencies better prevent, these attacks, especially from them organizing and actually then, spread into different parts?
Thank you so much for having me. I think it is very clear from the way my brother there is speaking that intelligence already exists. Now, the way in which this intelligence is being used is the issue of debate at the moment. Also, quite interesting is the fact that majority of the people involved in this atrocity and diabolical act are people known to the community, whether they are riding Okada or walking around, so they have knowledge of the environment and they know how to actually cause maximum damage. But what is also important from the court's information and record is that Nasarawa is now an exporter of extremism and terrorism, whether we like it or not, because most of those individuals actually carried themselves or got those fundings from there, i.e. they did what you call crowdfunding and went into this diabolical act. And I am a bit worried because this shows a new dimension, because the concern was that they said there was an attack of their cattle, there were attack on their people. But myself, you, and the media, and most of our listeners, are not aware of any news of any cattle being killed, any Fulani person being killed in this particular axis of Makurdi axis. So it's very clear now that this was a preempted attack of mass murdering of innocent individuals. And just like my brother clearly mentioned, these individuals' name need to be given to the police so that they could do what is necessary to arrest those people and gather intelligence to ensure that those people appear in court. What I'm pleased with is that even though, from June to now, it's a bit of few months have gone through, but at least this is not like the previous cases of attack where attack happened. They say there's going to be arraignment of individuals and we wait for months or years. But at least within a 6 months gap, we are seeing, this incident happening. And I want to encourage my brother to gather as many people within the community who are eyewitnesses to ensure that they make themselves available, through advocacy and whatever means possible to ensure that justice is gained for those families that are lost and for those Nigerians that were helpless on that fateful day.
All right, Temitope, we're going to come back to this. We're going to go on a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to continue on this conversation. There is still a lot more to talk about on this. Do stay with us. Well, we're just talking about the prosecution and the trial, rather, going on with 9 suspects that are complicit in the 2025 massacre in Yelwata. And I have with me Frank Otor and also Temitope that is joining me, and we've been talking about this. Now, I'm going to go back to you, Frank, because earlier on I was asking Temitope how we can deal with our intelligence, like having to receive this, or rather stopping these attacks before it happens. Now, Frank, beyond the courtroom, what is happening right now, what we're seeing play out, how has the lack of accountability affected the displaced survivors and, of course, the ongoing equipping the persecuted efforts in Benue State? And also, I have to ask, given the testimonies that neighbors in Nasarawa State allegedly commissioned these attacks, is there any path left for peaceful coexistence at all between any of these communities?
Oh, okay, thank you very much. Very vital question. First of all, look, for us to attain peace, there must be justice. Martin Luther King Jr. said, peace is not the absence of crisis, but the presence of justice. And so the people who perpetrate this evil act must be held to account. And not just these foot soldiers. We pay so much attention to these foot soldiers. Let's talk about the patrons, the oligarchs who are behind this. That Almajiri who came to Yorota with AK-47 is not capable of buying that AK-47. And that's the same Almajiri you find on the streets of Lafia, on the streets of Kadoko, on the streets of Ajaru, begging with bowl, begging you for 100 naira. And an AK-47 goes for about 3.5 million naira. Let's get these people who, right from the emirs to the political class of many of these Fulani clans, up to the traditional institutions. Look, like my brother said, Nasarawa State for so long has been a sanctuary to these guys. From the time of Amakura, when those guys were imported in 2013 to 2014, imported, just like what many of these APC chieftains were able to attest, that they brought them in 2013, 2014 for the election of 2015. They infiltrated, they saturated the forest of Nasarawa South, amongst other forests, Southern Kaduna, Plateau, Zamfara, with these guys. We are well aware that time. Al-Makura came out, when we accosted him, he came out to say, these are international hunters. Does Nasarawa State have international hunting routes? No. But he described, these are the same guys. Many of them are French speaking. When you accost many of them, when they pick a call, they will say hello. That the French way of answering hello on a call. They say hello. They came from neighboring French communities, countries, and they infiltrated in the forest of Nasarawa State. Nasarawa State have for so long been a sanctuary, we keep repeating. And that is why they are always deliberate in making sure that the governor is a proxy to the caliphate at every point in time. At every point in time, when the indigenous people of Nasarawa State want to gain governorship, they'll foist a governor on them so that they'll continue to create a sanctuary in Nasarawa State for these guys to be attacking Benue, to be attacking Plateau, and to be attacking Southern Kaduna. So, but for the purpose of accountability will go to a very great extent to assuage the feelings of our people. When we see these guys line up to the Gallock, because the criminal law in Nigeria still establish death sentence for this kind of offense. Let the government of Nigeria lift that moratorium.
All right.
Let them apply this death sentence on this guy. Let's go. Let's gather our people here. Let's go to the field and see these guys hung to death.
Okay.
Because they have to pay for this. We are after accountability.
Absolutely.
The other arm of it is in the intelligence gathering that I've told you. I work for equipping the persecuted, and we have the Truth Nigeria. If you listen to this congressional hearing 3 months ago in the US, many of the congressmen were making references to Truth Nigeria. That's our organization that they got their information from Truth Nigeria. It's a very reliable organization. We carry out very strong intel. We have intel on ground, and that is why we could call these names
absolutely
for you one by one.
And like I already said, I'm hoping that the needful will be done, which is you with the intelligence you've gathered, working with the police to also help with the case? Because the federal government is handling this. We have the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Latif Kwabemi, who is leading the council. So they are moving and pushing on this, and we're hoping that you do work hand in hand, like you already mentioned. Now, before I'll let you go, Temitope, please let me know, now that local leaders have been named in court, you've heard the report, what impact will this have on breaking the culture of impunity and influential sponsors of violence? As quickly as you can, please.
Thank you. One thing that we could be clear about is that the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been quite intensive in terms of intentional, in terms of how they are moving. And we could see the influence of America, in fact, and my brother and some of the pressure groups that is making sure that justice is being given to family members of those that have been slain. One of the things that I would like to see more done is the area of conflict entrepreneurs. We need to break their back. People that are sponsoring this incident need to be dealt with. But more importantly, we need to clear off dangerous weapons. Military grade weapons should not be in the hands of ordinary Alumajiris and all these people that are having secret meetings. It shows you that our intelligence is weak and there is challenges in our intelligence. We are giving a lot of money into the intelligence sector, but we are not seeing major returns there. So I believe that the Nigerian Senate and also the legislators, the House of Representatives, need to actually bring in this intelligence team to have a conversation with them. But more importantly, I think our Senate House or our legislative house need to learn from the Americans. Look at how my brother and other people could go in to give account, to tender intelligence information. Why is it that our legislators cannot hold hearings that people that we in the UK, in America, that have very important information to give them, can actually get involved and give them intelligence that will inform legislation, that will inform actions, and will inform how Mr. President is able to tackle these security challenges. Because most of us don't want to stay in the cold here, and you go, my brother is stressed.
Absolutely.
And myself, where we are dressed. We want to come back home, but we can't come back home if the security continues to be worsened on a daily basis.
Thank you so much. We've been talking to Frank Uto, a lawyer, humanitarian, media relations officer for Equipping the Persecuted and a native of Yawata. So he's been giving us firsthand reports. And also join me was Temitope Olodo, the CEO, Managing Director, Traz Intelligence Security Solutions. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Earlier on, we told you about a meeting that has been held by the opposition parties, and currently we have our correspondent that will be joining us to have that conversation. In a moment, he'll be joining us to have that conversation. But now, a member of the House of Representatives representing Oromion and Umwede Federal Constituency of Edo State, Billy Osawaro, has dismissed allegations linking the state governor, Monday Okpebholo, to the attack on the convoy of former presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, in the state. Osawaro, while addressing newsmen, says that the allegation by one of his colleagues, Peter Uzokwe, that Peter Obi and some chieftains of the Action Democratic Party were attacked by unknown gunmen and thugs sponsored by the state government is a misrepresentation of fact, and that there is no evidence to justify this claim. He says that while Obi is free to visit any part of the country, some context has intentionally been omitted from the narrative and calls for a thorough investigation into the incident.
It is unfair to link the governor to this attack without concrete evidence. We have seen no credible evidence to support these allegations, and it's our position that such claims are baseless and politically motivated. The governor has nothing to gain from such an attack, and it is telling that those making these allegations have failed to provide any substance to back their claims. Therefore, what we demand is a thorough investigation, and we are confident it will clear Governor Okpebholo's name. We call on all parties to allow the investigation to run its course and to refrain from making statements that could prejudice.
Earlier on, we told you that national opposition parties have called on members to unite against the ruling All Progressives Congress, saying that Nigeria's democracy is facing a steep decline and in need of an emergency. At a press briefing in Abuja, they say there is a need to dislodge the ruling party in a bid to address current alleged regression, which is causing untold hardship on citizens and taking a toll on the nation. Now, joining us to have this conversation and to understand this coalition and, of course, their stance is Aden Duale, a correspondent. Joining us, he's the Abuja Bureau Chief and Head of Northern Operations, New Central TV. Hello, Aden, how are you doing? All right, Aden, do go ahead and tell us what this meeting is about, and most importantly, the stance of the opposition and what they are gearing up to, given the 2027 general elections.
Okay, first of all, Chisom, you watched the clip earlier on. That was your first clip. And from what you can see, or from what you saw, it was rather like a verdict passed by opposition coalition parties comprising the Action Democratic Party, comprising the New Nigeria People's Party, some members of the Labour Party and other notable politicians. They had come together to review the state of the nation, especially in the light of the recent FCT election, area council election, which I had previously had. And from their own assessment, they say, in their own words, that there is a retrogression. Nigeria's democracy is facing a retrogression, and there is need to rescue it. The climax of the event was that these political bigwigs called on all members of the opposition to unite ahead of the upcoming 2027 general elections, hoping that they can dislodge the ruling All Progressives Congress. And they are believing that their unity will go a long way in mustering their political base and in facing the All Progressive Congress headlong.
All right, thank you so much, Aden Duale. We're going to continue following up on that, and let us see if it's not just going to be an alignment in the ADC, if they're going to be maybe the LP, the Labour Party, and all of the rest coming together. Thank you so much for that. Now we're going to go on a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to give you more stories. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. If you just tuned in, here's a recap of our top stories. Police witnessed names attack sponsors in 2025 Benue Community Massacre trial. The opposition coalition is rejecting new electoral act, vowing legal action. Millions of children face death amid renewed violence in South Sudan. Now to electoral matters. Human rights lawyer and senior advocate of Nigeria, Olisa Agbakoba, is calling for urgent legal and institutional reforms to strengthen Nigeria's electoral system and improve national revenue generation. He says gaps in existing laws continue to weaken election credibility and economic governance. Agbakoba, while addressing the media in Lagos, argues that this legal gap makes it nearly impossible to successfully challenge election outcomes, noting that petitioners would need hundreds of thousands of witnesses across polling units, a burden he describes as unrealistic within constitutional timelines.
The man who should be held liable for the proper or improper conduct of an election is the referee. They're the ones to prove it, not me. Not me who ran for governor of Anambra. I lose. Then I sue him, who is the sitting governor, Collins. Then INEC will be with him. That's the problem. INEC will shut its mouth and will be told, defend your election results. You are the referee. That will change the picture. If you read the EO very well, you will find that NNPC was gulping 70% of our crude oil resources. When we wrote something about taking ownership of our resources, immediately I saw Executive Order 10, following it word for word, I was absolutely thrilled. So in PIA, you have many parts that give NNPC money. But in that same PIA, NNPC is made a private company. Hope you know. It's made a private company. So how can a private company continue to take 70% of our revenue?
And now to one that is causing all of the conversation, the appointment of a new acting Inspector General of Police has sparked widespread reactions across the country, with many expressing cautious optimism over strategies to tackle insecurity. Now, while some acknowledge the president's constitutional power to appoint the police chief, others have questioned the pattern of appointing junior officers over their more senior counterparts. Our correspondent, Edong Joseph, reports.
From the busy streets of Abuja to social media platforms, conversations are centered on the expectations from the newly appointed Acting Inspector General of Police, Tunji Disu. And for many Nigerians, his appointment represents an opportunity to build on the gains of his predecessor, while for others, there is, however, skepticism about whether anything will significantly change in the fight against insecurity.
At least what the other one, where come out, where the place where no even reach, where there's a capacity where it's not serious. So make this one do more than that.
We expect maximum security in the country. Even though they bring the new military director or military chief, the same thing that happened will happen. So whether a new IG or old one, the same insecurity will continue to happen.
Beyond public expectations, Disu's appointment has also drawn scrutiny over the recurring practice by successive administrations of appointing inspectors general of police who are not necessarily the most senior officers in the force.
Legally, constitutionally, the president has all the powers and the right to appoint whoever he feels that will be able to help him to interpret or to carry his mandate to Nigerians. But still, Nigerians also have the freedom, the constitutional right, their civic duty to scrutinize.
While the law empowers the president to appoint any serving officer he deems fit, bypassing senior officers often trigger early retirements, internal restructuring, and speculations within the force.
There are a lot of brilliant DIG that could have taken over. It may be sometimes the reason that being at that position of seniority close to the IG, you're already in tune or you already have a mindset of what, if there are mistakes that the IG did, you guys did it together.
Remember the Police Service Commission, the HR body of the police, was fined 40 million naira for compulsory retiring someone because his junior became there. So I don't know what is in the mind of the current people that will be forced to retire. If you want to go to court, I've already told you about the case.
As Tunji Disu assumes leadership of the Nigeria Police Force, many say the real test will be whether the new administration can win public trust and effectively address insecurity across the country. In Abuja for News Central, Edong Joseph.
Local government administrators have been identified as key to addressing the widening gap affecting girl-child education across northern Nigeria. This is as stakeholders converged in Abuja for a meeting to review strategies aimed at ensuring that school planning and budgeting specifically cater to the needs of the girl child. The goal is to move beyond general policy and create a roadmap that ensures every girl not only enrolls in school, but completes their education. News Central Sagi's Ibrahim reports.
Nigeria's Constitution and the Child Rights Act mandate free compulsory basic education. Yet, UNICEF data shows 10.5 million children remain out of school. Girls account for 60% of this figure, with nearly half residing in the Northwest and Northeast regions. To bridge this gap, government and development partners have unveiled several strategic interventions. One such is this workshop, which focuses on equitable resource allocation and accountable governance to ensure funds translate into quality education at the grassroots.
It is to institutionalize the gender responsive education sector plan at local government areas in Borno State, and we're working in 4 local governments particularly. For us, we are keen about seeing a bottom-top approach where local government chairmen, secretaries, education secretaries that are key stakeholders in this respective local government are able to make informed decisions. And this will largely address, the issue of girl-child marriage, the issue of period poverty, and all, challenges that the girl child face and other marginalized groups in the community face as well.
We have Dambua, Mafa, Gubiu, and Skirauba. These are all local governments that are ravaged with a prolonged issue of insecurity. One of the targets is to have more block of classrooms, right, as well as block of toilets that are people living with disability friendly. Another issue is that it's not just about the insecurity, it's about the issue of early marriages and what have you. And one of the major things is to talk to them about campaigns, issues of role models, community role models, to see how they can influence these children to be able to enroll in school, stay in school, and graduate to be something else.
The participants include local government secretaries, education secretaries, and heads of personnel management. Theirs is to commit towards data-driven planning, gender-responsive budgeting, and transparent service delivery.
One of the good things, currently the document is on implementation pipeline, and they were invited to see and they were invited to discuss a lot of indicators on that document. I know definitely they will go back with the takeaway and they will put more emphasis to see some of the indicators were implemented in the state.
For stakeholders, the key takeaway is to improve girl-child education by having more girls enroll into school, remain in school, and transition to the next level. In Abuja for News Central, Sagir Ibrahim.
Now, as political alignments begin ahead of the 2027 general elections, attention is once again turning to the Women's Seat Bill pending before the National Assembly. The bill, which seeks to improve women's representation in elective offices, is yet to be passed. Following the outcome of the recent FCT Area Council elections, concerns are growing that 2027 could reflect similar trends if nothing changes. News Central's Sumaya Abubakar reports.
The Women's Seat Bill proposes structured measures to increase the number of women representation in Nigeria's political space. Despite previous debates and push, it remains stalled at the National Assembly. In the FCT Area Council elections, only a limited number of women contested as councillors and chairpersons across the 6 area councils, a development many say mirrors the absence of stronger legal backing.
What we're trying to achieve with the special seat bill, it's not about favoritism, right? It is just about ensuring that there's fairness and there is strengthening of democratic representation of women in the electoral process in Nigeria.
Since the parties don't want to give us an open grant, or should I say a level grant, I think there has to be another reconsideration, and that's where the reserve seats bill comes in play.
The special seats bill is supposed to have been passed alongside the electoral law because they are both bills that have timeline implications.
With political parties expected to begin consultations ahead of 2027, the delay in passing the bill could shape how many women secure tickets at both national and sub-national levels. The FCT councillorship and chairmanship outcomes are now being viewed as an early indicator of what may happen nationwide if reforms are not concluded before primaries.
As a female candidate, right from the primaries, to be honest, it has been very hectic. Because I won my primaries with 1 vote. And right after that, we had some group of youths, male youths, who did accept that. Because sometimes you hear people making statements of in the midst of all these men, where are the men sleeping for you to have gotten the tickets?
The FCT Area Council elections had 65 candidates fielded for the elections, right? And just 3 out of these candidates were women. And doing the math, you will discover that that is just about 4.6% out of the total number of candidates that contested for the elections. It shows you the low level of representation of women in political spaces.
With 2027 fast approaching, the fate of Women's Seat Bill can determine whether the FCT pattern is repeated nationwide. For now, the bill remains before the National Assembly of Nigeria, and the clock towards 2027 is ticking. In Abuja, for News Central, Sumaya Abubakar.
Now we'll take a moment. When we come back, we'll go outside of shores of Nigeria. To stay with us. we stop by in Kenya, where they have launched the rollout of Lenacapavir in Nairobi. This groundbreaking drug, administered twice yearly, offers over 99.9% protection against HIV transmission for thousands of Kenyan families. Health Minister Aden Duale confirmed the drug will be free. The initiative specifically targets the 1.3 million Kenyans living with HIV, focusing heavily on vulnerable young adult recipients, including community workers and youth, praised the injection's privacy and convenience. This rollout follows successful introductions in South Africa, Eswatini, and Zambia to bolster continental health.
I decided to come and take Lenacapavir. I used to use the Tembe one, and I started using it in 2017, of which ilikuwa inanisumbua sana na hiyo time ya kutake, saa zingine nasahau the pills, saa zingine nakosa hata kumeza, na nilikuwa na put myself.
In South Sudan, they are buckling under a fresh wave of violence and displacement. Attacks have intensified in Jonglei State, where clashes between government forces and opposition elements have displaced more than 280,000 people, according to government sources. Hundreds of thousands of civilians in central South Sudan continue to face insecurity and malnutrition, despite repeated peace agreements and ceasefires in 2015, 2017, and 2018. Political violence and instability persist. Children are bearing the heaviest burden, with millions facing life-threatening conditions. News Central's Bongani Siziba reports.
A breaking point is becoming visible. The peace process commitments under landmark 2018 peace agreement are on stale or maybe in reverse. 18-month-old lying motionless on a hospital bed deep in the conflict zone of South Sudan, a bullet wound in his leg. He's another newly orphaned victim in the world's newest country. The bullet that hit him also killed his mother. It was government forces that attacked their village.
As we speak now, we don't have option. Only God we just praise the God will alone protect us.
South Sudan gained its independence in 2011, but soon descended into civil war between two rivals, General Salva Kiir and Riek Machar. A 2018 power-sharing deal brought relative peace, with Kiir as president and Machar his deputy. But the agreement was unraveled over the past years. Fighting in Jonglei State between army under Kiir and forces loyal to Machar has displaced more than 280,000 people since December. This is according to the United Nations. This is a Kobo teaching hospital in eastern South Sudan, yet another victim of gunshots. Fresh clashes between government and opposition forces have left civilians wounded and displaced, and medical personnel struggle to cope with mass casualties amid fuel shortages, medicines, and equipment.
We are lacking of a lot of medication and a lot of equipment, surgical equipment, so to help us to operate all these patients. And also we have shortage of fuel in the hospital.
Gunshots and death wound is not the only challenge they face in South Sudan. According to the United Nations, more than half of them, children, are forced to flee for the second time or third time they face hunger in these formal camps.
We have roughly 6,782 individuals. That is 749 households. That is the population that is here, that crossed from Jonglei to Awerial.
Stakes are rising in South Sudan. What's happening? Why does it matter? The 2018 revitalized peace agreement was the key safeguard against renewed civil war, but elements of this power sharing and security provisions are fraying. South Sudan remains in a crisis of staggering proportions, with civilians paying the highest price. For News Central, Bongani Siziba.
Now, the United Nations Security Council has imposed sanctions on 4 commanders of Sudan's Rapid Support Forces over alleged atrocities in El Fasher, North Darfur. Those sanctioned include Deputy Commander Abdul Rahim Hamda Dagolo and Brigadier General Al Fatah Abdullah Idris, also known as Abu Lulu. The UN links them to mass killings, ethical targeted executions, and other abuses during the RSF's capture of the city in October. The RSF, led by Mohamed Hamda Dagalo, has rejected the sanctions, describing them as unfair and insisting any violations were isolated incidents under review. Tensions between the United States and Iran are once again at a critical point. Delegations from both countries have begun indirect talks in Switzerland in what's been described as a last-ditch diplomatic effort to prevent a wider conflict in the Middle East. The negotiations come amid the largest American military buildup in the region in decades, and after President Donald Trump issued Tehran with a stark warning: reach a deal within 15 days or face potential military action. Senior correspondent Afua Hagen reports.
Iran and the United States have begun indirect talks in Switzerland, described as a last-ditch effort to prevent a wider war in the Middle East. The Oman-mediated discussions come after the largest American military buildup in the region in decades, and after President Donald Trump issued Tehran with a 15-day deadline to reach a deal or face possible military action. Delegations from both countries arrived under tight security at the Omani ambassador's residence in Geneva. Protests by Iranian exiles last week saw objects thrown at the Iranian motorcade. Oman's Foreign Minister Badar al-Busadi confirmed the talks were underway, saying both sides had shown what he called unprecedented openness to new ideas. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian insisted ahead of the meeting that Tehran is not seeking nuclear weapons, referencing Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's long-standing position. But Washington remains unconvinced. In his State of the Union address this week, Trump accused Iran of pursuing what he called sinister nuclear ambitions and warned that Iranian missiles could soon threaten the United States. Tehran dismissed those claims as big lies. The US wants any agreement to include limits on Iran's ballistic missile program and its support for armed groups across the region. Iran says the talks should focus only on its nuclear activities. Meanwhile, the USS Gerald R. Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier, has been deployed to the Mediterranean, underscoring the high stakes. For many Iranians, the prospect of renewed conflict is deeply worrying. Diplomacy for now continues, but with military pressure looming in the background. For News Central.
And that is all on the 6th edition for today. But before we go, here is a recap of our major stories. We told you that police witness names attack sponsors in 2025 Benue Community Massacre trial. Also, the opposition coalition are rejecting new electoral act vowing legal action. And millions of children face death amid renewed violence in South Sudan. Remember, you may send us your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. And don't forget to follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. And you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. My name is Chisom Okafor.